Welcome back to American Morning. President Obama is doing something this week that he hasn't done often since winning the White House. He is courting the African-American vote. Only time is going to tell if his approach is working, because he sure raised a few eyebrows at a Congressional Black Caucus dinner on Saturday night. Listen.
I'm going to press on for the sake of all those families who are struggling right now. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I don't have time to complain. I'm going to press on. I expect all of you to march with me and press on. Take off your bedroom slippers. Put on your marching shoes. Shake it off. Stop complaining. Stop grumbling. Stop crying.
All right, CNN contributor Errol Louis with us this morning. Errol, he's back in campaign mode, obviously, and he's good at that. Who was he talking to? I've been having this discussion on Twitter this morning. Was he talking to Congressional Black Caucus members with whom he's had some tension? Was he just talking generally to say, I'm going to press on, so you should too? Was he talking to blacks? Who was he talking to, do you think?
I think he was talking to the leadership. He was talking to the caucus, first of all. I remember, actually, I was at the dinner right before he ran for president the first time. The caucus didn't back him. He was a member of the caucus. He started off that speech that night talking about how the civil rights leadership had sort of treated him at arm's length. They were curious about him at first. They didn't really support him. So I interpreted him as talking to the caucus and saying, look, you've got to get behind me. We've got to do this together. And, you know, he certainly wasn't talking to, you know, millions of people on the unemployment line. You know, he wasn't telling them to quit crying. He was talking to the people who had been criticizing him.
What is that? What is the complaining and grumbling and crying that he's talking about? Is it these members who have had these town hall meetings and these job fairs, almost like Representative Maxine Waters, drawing attention to the fact that they are paying attention to the plight of urban blacks? ... Maybe he isn't.
Exactly right. And it's not just somebody like a Maxine Waters. Yeah, that's a complaint that you hear from her. She's a longtime member, well-known liberal from South Central Los Angeles. When you hear it from an Emmanuel Cleaver, though, who's the chair of the caucus, who used to be the mayor of Kansas City in Missouri, in a swing state that this president cannot win unless he gets big votes in Kansas City and in St. Louis. You know, when you look at some of the other representatives who are complaining in some of these Midwest states, in districts that he's really got to carry and carry big, it can be a real problem for him. So he's, I think, I took this as a shot across their bow, frankly, saying, like, look, I'm the president. I want you to march with me. What he really means is you need to march behind me. You need to get in line. You need to get behind me. We need to do this together, or nobody's going to be helped.
There are some numbers here I want to show you with respect to polling. There's, you know, the president, in fact, I don't know where it is, but we'll just put it up on the screen. It's well, let's take a look at this instead. This is the black unemployment rate. When President Obama took office, it was 12.7%. There's always been a swing between black unemployment and white unemployment in this country. That swing has, that spread has widened substantially. It's now 16.7%. That's the black unemployment rate. It's gotten worse. And it's the optics of it having gotten worse under a black president are something that President Obama's got to deal with. I can't draw the line. As a business journalist, I don't think it's got anything to do with President Obama that it's gotten worse for blacks, but there are a whole lot of blacks who think, boy, that's really ironic and terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. But you and I followed this campaign in 2008 and the subsequent events long enough to know that there was no point at which he got up and said, I'm going to narrow the gap between black and white unemployment. He never said, I'm going to eliminate unemployment. He said, I'm going to do what I can to get America back to work, and that rising tide will lift all boats. I mean, it's the only message he can say as president of the United States.
It is unfortunate, though, that for all of this time where there's been this normal spread, the spread got worse. In other words, this recession, this economic situation has hit African Americans worse than it's hit whites, and maybe that's part of why it's affecting some of his popularity, his support amongst blacks. A recent Washington Post ABC poll says that 58% of blacks have a strongly favorable view of the president. That's a drop, according to their polling, from 83% just 5 months ago. What's changed so suddenly?
Well, I mean, I think some of it is the economic pain. And look, frankly, some of it is the grumbling and the complaining. When you get this messaging coming out from people like a Cornel West, from people like a Tavis Smiley, they're having meetings, they're going on the radio hour after hour after hour, day after day. It takes its toll, for sure. I mean, but look, you and I both know that the number on Election Day is going to be close to 99% of the black voters are going to be for Barack Obama.
The issue is whether they turn out.
And how many, and in what districts, and in what states. And that's the problem.
I mean, I guess it's tough for the president to accept the argument that he's not interested in urban black issues, given that a lot of his history has been in urban black issues.
Well, that's all of his history, actually. I mean, you know, I don't know that he takes it personally because he's no drama Obama. He doesn't really react that way. On the other hand, look, the folks who are doing the grumbling and complaining, this is the kind of politics that brought them into power. That is what they do. They complain against those who are in power. It's a little bit tricky now. The person who's in power is a former member of their caucus, somebody who's intimately familiar with their issues, who has actually been a much better political operator than any of them have been, and has done something they could only dream of. It becomes very hard for them to figure out how to criticize him. It becomes, in turn, hard for him to figure out how to get them to line up behind him. But
ultimately, if they need to get reelected, they've actually got to be out there saying not enough is being done, and I guess that's just politics.
That's exactly right. On the other hand, you know, you don't necessarily want to bother the President of the United States when he's busy and has specifically asked for your help. That's something that anybody in the party is supposed to at least take serious regard for.
Errol, good to see you. Errol's a CNN contributor. He's also the co-editor of Deadline Artists, America's Greatest Newspaper Columns, and a political anchor with New York's New York One. The book, by the way, hits bookstands this month. Looking forward to reading it, Errol. Good to see you.
Now's your chance to talk back on one of the big stories of the day. The question for you this morning is Bill Clinton helping or hurting President Obama? Bill Clinton, the last two-term Democratic president, may have thrown cold water on President Obama's bid for a second term. Clinton told the conservative website